So we'll start the meeting, please. Welcome everybody. Glad to see so much interest in the mid-year Treasury strategy. Obviously a big turnout tonight on that matter. The following members have asked to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1. Item 8, Councillor Stuart Piper, Councillor Wing and Councillor Campbell. Are there any other members who wish to speak tonight? No? We're all here, so there aren't any apologies from the Cabinet. Does anybody have any declarations of interest in the business on the agenda this evening? Councillor Yates.
I'd like to declare potential interest in item number 8, which is the replacement of berth 4 and 5 in Ramsgate. And that's the company I work for, London Array, is mentioned in the report. So therefore, I find it, for the safety of myself, I'd like to excuse myself from that, just to avoid any doubt.
Excuse me. Could I just, I've been waiting to clarify this, it just keeps slipping my mind, but when we get to declarations of interest, does that mean everybody in the room, including elected officials and paid officers?
It just means Cabinet members. However, if an officer had a particular interest in the matter, they would have already disclosed it anyway and would withdraw from the meeting. But there are separate rules and you have to disclose them in advance if you're a member of the committee.
Thank you.
Now, before we proceed to the business of the meeting, I want to advise everybody present that we have an issue with item 8 in terms of the way that it's been brought forward for discussion this evening, which means we won't be able to make a decision this evening. However, for the benefit of those of you who've come to hear what we've got to say about it, we will make clear what our position is. That matter will become more clear in due course. I don't know, Mr. Howes, do you want to say anything about why we're not able to make a decision?
Yes, there's a minimum notice period where we have to put it on the floor plan. We're allowed to limit that notice period in exceptional circumstances, which we did in this case, but we didn't give the sufficient 5 clear days notice of that. We missed it by a day, and I apologise for that. But unfortunately, therefore, we can't make a decision on that matter this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Howes, but as I say, we will discuss it. Agenda item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting, to approve the summary recommendations and decisions of the Cabinet meeting held on the 17th of October 2019. Do I have I'll move the minutes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alban, thank you. Members agreed? Agreed, thank you. Which brings us to agenda item 8. Yeah, thank you. Right, members, Councillor Yates having left us, this is a report which describes the need to urgently replace the existing berth 4 and 5, the aggregate berth at the Port of Ramsgate, which has reached the end of its operational life, and summarises 2 primary options to achieve this, including estimated costs. The report also includes details of an existing opportunity which offers significant advantages in terms of cost and long-term operation. Importantly, this opportunity will also allow the delivery of a commercial berth project in Ramsgate Harbour to address the current and anticipated long-term shortage of berthing space for wind farm support vessels. A total of 4 options are listed in the report, which describe 2 berth design solutions for the project and 2 separate procurement routes. A budget for both of these projects is allocated in the 2019-20 capital programme, and this report seeks Cabinet's approval to commit these funds and deliver both projects via a single contract. Now, as I've explained, we're not able to reach a decision on this tonight for technical reasons, but I think it's important that we give the Council and members of the public who are interested an understanding of where we are as a Cabinet on this. It's something that we've discussed at considerable length with and without officers, and I know that there are strong opinions in the community around it. So Cabinet has carefully considered the options that are in front of it, and I'd like at this point to particularly thank Mr Humber for his work on this project, and indeed for this report, which has brought, I think, a significant amount of new information into the public domain, as well, of course, as Mr Waite, the Director of Operational Services. The view of Cabinet is that this decision is finely balanced. But we have listened to the community's concerns, particularly about the potential impact on the listed Royal Harbour. This is an initiative which we inherited from the previous administration, and I know that they'd wrestled with the problems previously as much as we had, and as the opposition we engaged with them quite extensively to try and understand what the issues are. The decision which Cabinet has reached, but which we cannot bring forward tonight, is that we will be supporting option 4, which is on page 11 of the report. Can I invite Councillor Piper to speak?
Thank you very much, Leader. I have to confess that as someone who is interested in the process as well as the outcome, I have tried, sometimes in vain, to work out just what on earth has been going on with this issue. It feels a bit like hunting a chameleon in the middle of the jungle. Every time I get a bit closer to the target, it changes colour and I just can't see it. We've had urgent decision, an exempt call-in idea, now a cabinet urgent, and possibly on to a delegated urgent decision. The nature of this so-called urgent decision was described by the monitoring officer on Tuesday night as a movable feast. The reason offered is that the nature of the decision has had to change based on the changing legal advice that's been given, or is that received. We're not sure very much about that either. Who is giving this specialist advice? Is Council advising itself, or is Council being advised by Council? Leader, can I invite you to a trip down memory lane? Cabinet on the 3rd of April 2014, paragraph 155, the minutes. Councillor Everett proposed, Councillor C. Hart seconded, and members agreed the following: to adopt the consolidated and amended recommendations set out in paragraph 6.2 of the Cabinet report. Those recommendations were as follows: commercial agreements relating to debt or similarly significant matters should be managed in accordance with the following principles: the recording of significant meetings, the recording of relevant telephone conversations, the retention of significant notes, emails and correspondence. Information should be retained in chronological order and in sufficient detail to support subsequent scrutiny. Members need relevant and appropriate information to make decisions, and such information should be disclosed to members by officers. I realise it was some time ago, Leader, but I have a copy of that for you to have a look at if you wish. I don't have any specific question relating to that one, but just for information. The information on this issue is not only changing with the times, but it isn't being given to members. And especially, I suspect, the new administration hasn't got as much as they need. Yet you now have this poisoned chalice of a decision to make. And I would like to suggest there is no shame in rejecting it as it stands. Leader, can you assure us that the statement in the executive summary, which reads, a budget for both these projects is allocated in the 2019-2020 capital programme, can you assure me that is correct? It may be a memory thing for me, but I do not recall the second project even being mentioned when the budget was set for the repair or replacement of berths 4 and 5. Indeed, I got into very hot water with the CEO for daring to suggest more clarity was needed to ensure exactly what we were setting the budget for. So that is a question, please, Leader. Is that correct? Our S151 officer notes in his comments in this report that he has not seen the specialist legal advice. I'm forced to ask, Leader, good heavens, why ever not? He is, after all, the S151 officer with more than a modicum of fiscal responsibility. He also notes Cabinet members must seek assurance from the legal comments and obtain confidence in the legality of the decision they may be about to make. Leader, have you and all Cabinet members obtained that confidence in the legality of the decision that you will reach? Moving on to the legal notes, bottom of page 4, the Council has a long-term lease agreement with its customer, Brett Aggregates. This lease requires the Council to provide a berth for the purpose of discharging aggregates, etc., etc. It's the bottom of page 4. Leader, can I ask you, what do you make of the now public document which suggests in paragraph 2 of Annex 1, and I quote, TDC has agreed with Brett to replace the licence with a 20-year operating agreement under which Brett would realign and carry out improvement works to the berth at their cost. That was the Cabinet in 2005. Has there ever been, Leader, a newer agreement, and if so, who has seen it? We are constantly being told this berth is our responsibility. Can I turn then to paragraph 1 on page 5, still in the legal section? It is not possible to say definitively that this is a works or a supply contract. This is important, as a works contract would come underneath the EU procurement threshold, but a supplies contract would not. This question would only be answered by a court if a challenge were raised. I have to say, really? That seems to me the same as saying robbing a bank is only a crime if you get caught. Leader, there are so many issues which make this an untenable proposition that I must ask you on behalf of the people of Thanet to reject the concept. Not only the outcome, but the process by which this chameleonic decision keeps rearing its ugly head. It's a very serious matter, but perhaps I can end with my own particular brand of humour. There must be a better way to sort this out. Let's take it. Let's get Brett's bit done. Thank you.
Councillor Piper, thank you for that. I mean, I'm a little bit puzzled by some of it because he didn't relate to what I said about Cabinet's view. And it seems to be addressed to a decision that you assumed we were going to take tonight to support option 1. Certainly in terms of talking about the direct award, which is not included in option 4. You also talked about things that happened in 2005. Well, I was a councillor in the London Borough of Bexley in 2005, so you'll forgive me if I'm not totally au fait with them. The reality is that this decision, this process has evolved under the previous administration, and you're quite right. I've not been party to every twist and turn of it, and you wouldn't have expected me to be, because it was the job of the then leader and portfolio holder. But I respect the input that he's made to that process. We're not making a decision tonight, so there is an opportunity to consider everything that you've said, including the bits that may resonate with members of the public. Do you want to speak? Chief Executive.
Councillor Piper, I think it might be helpful, if you don't mind, sharing your commentary this evening with me directly so that we can respond to it more formally, because I am concerned, and I know this is a very complex matter and there are many aspects of it, and it's difficult to comprehend what is sometimes quite legal and technical issues. So I think it would be helpful if we responded to you in writing in respect of all those issues that you're raising, because I'm not recognising all of them. I consider that officers have shared quite a lot of information through overview and scrutiny and directly with people around some of the technical detail, but we're happy to do it again. If you'd like to provide your commentary, then we can do you a written response. Okay.
Fine, thank you.
And to add to you, Councillor Piper, I mean, all members, well, apart from Councillor Yates, who's conflicting, the other 4 members of the Cabinet have all read the legal advice, and I believe that the Section 151 officer has as well. So that's the situation. And our judgment is made on the basis of that legal advice. And you might consider that the decision that we've made reflects that legal advice. Councillor Wing.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. I'm sure I'm not going to be as elegant as eloquent, as Councillor Piper, but I still remain quite confused over this. And I'll go back to an email that I sent to Mr Howes on the 18th of September, where I was requesting a large amount of information. This is a massive spend of money, and we need to make sure that we're armed with all the facts and information before we actually make a decision. The council taxpayers and residents we represent will be footing the bill. In that email, and I will share a copy of this email to everybody, I made a particular plea, a request, as an elected councillor who sits in Central Harbour, Ramsgate. I requested the business and the finance plans as well as the engineer's report. As a senior teacher in the school, I was responsible for not quite this large sum of money, but I couldn't spend anything without actually forwarding and working out what we needed to do. I also requested, is this going to be the final spend? Because I can see that actually sinking something into a harbour is obviously going to have additional spends. And we all know, even if we're doing repairs to our houses, it often overspends. I also brought up the question of silting up in the port and whether this was part of the financial plan, the business plan, whatever you like, needs to be done, the marine engineer's report. I also introduced the idea of planning permissions, and I do not think that the development in the harbour, placing one of those pontoons in the harbour, would be allowed under permitted development rights. I think there's a lot of legal acts and laws that will prevent that from happening. So I guess what I'm saying is, please, will you release the business, finance plans and the engineer's report that led to the decision for us to buy or potentially buy these 2 pontoons?
Thank you, Councillor Wing. I mean, it might be helpful if I just elaborate slightly on option 4. Option 4 in the report says, approve the expenditure of the budget allocation for berths 4 and 5 only and seek tenders via an open route. So I don't think that the issues that you're commenting on in relation to the Royal Harbour are actually going to be relevant. I don't know, what's the admin thing?
Still need the business fund, though.
Councillor Campbell.
Can I respond, please? Am I allowed to respond?
Strictly speaking, no. But I think
so what you're actually saying is that when we're going to spend 1.2 million, there's no need to have business finance plans or an engineer's report, because I believe those documents should exist if we're going to spend this amount of money. And all I'm kindly and politely requesting is that as an elected councillor, you actually said information's been brought into the public domain. Well, it hasn't been brought into my domain.
Councillor Wing, I'm quite happy to sit down with you and discuss the things that you'd like to see and do my best to provide them.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sorry. I'm sorry, but we're still on a platform of open, honest and transparent council making decision, and I do not see what the problem is with releasing the business, the finance plans and the marine engineer's report, which led to this decision being made. Surely they must have been done.
Well, my suggestion to you is that we have a meeting and discuss whether they exist, and if they exist, you can see them.
No.
Whether they exist,
Whether they exist.
Whether they exist. Why don't you say that they exist?
Oh, let me try and clarify. Obviously, a working party, cross-party working party was established in respect of the port. That kind of information and those discussions were had at that working party. Actually, Councillor Wing, I think it might be sensible if you took Councillor Everett's offer of a meeting to discuss with the appropriate officer, because I would point out to you actually that your email to Mr Howes on the 18th of September actually, as Tim Howes reported back to you, he's not responsible for the Port of Harbour, and I believe he redirected you back to Gavin Waite as the director responsible. I'm not sure whether you followed that up with Mr Waite, but that's was the process that should be followed. But I would strongly advise you, because I understand that this is a very complex subject. Understanding the processes of the council can be confusing at times, and what information is appropriate at what time and when that's available is something that actually takes some getting used to. So I would advise you, Councillor Wing, actually to take up the leader's offer and have a discussion with him and see if we can resolve some of your questions directly.
I'd like to respond. I will not take that advice, because again, I think this information should be in the public domain. So I'm now assuming that the documents do not exist.
They do exist, but that's not.
I'm going to call upon Councillor Campbell.
Where's your evidence?
Well done.
Well done, Becky.
Yes, we're ready. Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to congratulate the Cabinet, actually, from this particular decision. They've looked at all the options available. They haven't necessarily taken the option that was advised by the officers. They've looked at option 4, which goes out to general open tender for, and they're not buying the 2 pontoons. That isn't now on the table. If the owners of those pontoons wish to enter into the tender process, I'm sure they can do, and that will be considered as to whether the best value option available to the council to replace TDC's berth 4 and 5. But I congratulate the Cabinet on their decision to actually go to an open tender.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. It's unfortunate that we can't reach a decision this evening. I'm sure that there will be further discussion on that, and that discussion will include Councillor Wing and all members of the council who wish to have an input to the discussion. And we will be as transparent and as open as we possibly can on this issue, because we know it is a matter of public concern. I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and that concludes the meeting.